Edgar Cayce consistently taught throughout his documented readings that physical illness often stems from spiritual imbalance. Over his 43-year career giving psychic readings, he demonstrated remarkable accuracy in medical diagnoses and healing recommendations that baffled conventional doctors. The Association for Research and Enlightenment Archives in Virginia Beach contain thousands of verified cases where people experienced profound healing by following his spiritual guidance. But here's what's even more shocking about Cayce's work. He never claimed to have special powers. He taught that every human being possesses the same connection to what he called the Akashic Records, the cosmic repository of all soul experiences and universal knowledge. For over 4 decades, Edgar Cayce gave more than 14,000 documented psychic readings that are preserved in the ARE archives. Today you're going to discover the 7 steps he consistently revealed for raising your soul's vibration before you leave this earth. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what I'm about to share could transform your entire understanding of consciousness and spiritual development. The first thing you need to understand is what Cayce discovered about human consciousness. Throughout his readings, he consistently taught that we are not just physical beings having occasional spiritual experiences. We are eternal souls temporarily wearing physical bodies, and every single day, we're either raising our soul's vibration or lowering it through our thoughts, words, and actions. But wait, here's where it gets really interesting. Cayce's readings repeatedly emphasized that many physical ailments have spiritual origins. He taught that the soul chooses each incarnation for specific lessons, and unresolved spiritual issues manifest as physical symptoms or life challenges. This reveals the first step for raising your soul. Accept that you are an eternal being having a temporary human experience. Think of it this way. Your soul is like consciousness itself, and your physical body is just the current vehicle expressing it. The real you, the conscious you, exists beyond this temporary form. Cayce's documented readings consistently showed that people who truly grasp this concept experience profound shifts in both health and spiritual awareness. In his readings preserved at ARE, Cayce repeatedly emphasized that our souls choose each incarnation for specific spiritual development. Every challenge, every relationship, every opportunity serves our soul's evolution toward greater consciousness and compassion. Here's what Cayce discovered that changed everything about spiritual development. Most people live unconsciously, repeating the same patterns lifetime after lifetime without recognizing the spiritual lessons available in each experience. Step 2 will transform how you see your daily existence. Recognize that every thought, word, and action creates your spiritual destiny. Throughout the documented readings, Cayce consistently taught that thoughts are actual forces in the spiritual realm. He explained that our mental attitudes and emotional patterns create the circumstances we experience, not just in this lifetime, but carrying forward into future incarnations. This isn't just metaphysical theory. Cayce's readings provided specific examples of how changing mental patterns led to dramatic improvements in people's health, relationships, and life circumstances. But here's where most people get stuck. And in 3 minutes, I'll reveal what Cayce taught about the connection between consciousness and healing that revolutionized how we understand the mind-body relationship. The second step means taking complete responsibility for your spiritual development. According to Cayce's documented teachings, no external circumstances or other people determine your soul's growth, only your own choices and responses to life's experiences. The ARE archives contain numerous cases where people transformed their entire lives by applying this principle of personal spiritual responsibility consistently over time. Now, here's the third step, and this is where Cayce's work becomes truly revolutionary. Develop your connection to the divine through daily spiritual practice. In his readings, Cayce consistently emphasized that meditation is not just relaxation, it's actual attunement to what he called the creative forces of the universe. He taught specific meditation techniques designed to align individual consciousness with cosmic consciousness. Cayce's documented guidance on meditation consistently stressed that regular spiritual practice opens channels of wisdom and healing that transcend ordinary human understanding. He taught that anyone can develop this connection through patient, persistent practice. But wait, this changes everything about how we understand consciousness. Cayce taught that during proper meditation, we access the same universal intelligence he tapped into during his readings. This cosmic consciousness contains all knowledge and healing wisdom. Think of meditation as a tuning to universal intelligence. Every solution, every piece of guidance, every healing possibility exists within this cosmic awareness that Cayce demonstrated was accessible to every human being. The fourth step builds on this foundation. Purify your physical body as a temple for your soul. Throughout his health readings, Cayce consistently taught that physical purification directly affects spiritual sensitivity. His documented dietary recommendations weren't just for physical health. They were designed to enhance spiritual awareness and psychic ability. Here's what's profound about Cayce's approach. He understood that your physical body serves as an instrument for your soul's expression. The cleaner and more harmonious your physical vehicle, the more clearly your soul can manifest its true nature and abilities. Cayce's readings consistently recommended specific foods and practices that enhance spiritual vibration, while identifying others that create what he called spiritual static, interference with your soul's natural connection to divine guidance. The ARE archives document how people following Cayce's holistic health recommendations often reported not only improved physical health, but also enhanced intuition, clearer dreams, and stronger spiritual sensitivity. Now here's where Cayce's understanding of consciousness becomes truly extraordinary. His readings consistently demonstrated that individual consciousness can access information beyond normal sensory perception, including details about health conditions, past lives, and future possibilities. This leads us to the fifth step. Cultivate unconditional love and forgiveness as your highest spiritual practices. Throughout his readings, Cayce repeatedly taught that carrying resentment, hatred, or unforgiveness creates spiritual toxicity that affects both current life experiences and future incarnations. He consistently emphasized that forgiveness serves the forgiver more than the forgiven. The documented readings show that Cayce understood forgiveness as a form of spiritual medicine. It releases toxic emotional energy that blocks the soul's natural connection to divine love and wisdom. But here's what Cayce taught about love and forgiveness that most people completely misunderstand. True forgiveness isn't about condoning harmful behavior. It's about freeing your own soul from spiritual poison that impedes your consciousness development. According to Cayce's teachings, resentment and hatred function like spiritual cancer, consuming the soul's energy and preventing access to higher wisdom and healing abilities. The sixth step reveals one of Cayce's most consistent teachings. Use your unique talents and abilities to serve others. Throughout the documented readings, Cayce consistently taught that every soul incarnates with specific gifts designed to benefit humanity. He emphasized that discovering and developing these abilities serves both individual fulfillment and collective spiritual evolution. Cayce's readings repeatedly showed that souls experience their greatest satisfaction when contributing their unique abilities to help others heal, learn, and grow spiritually. Here's what's revolutionary about this teaching. Your greatest challenges often reveal your greatest gifts. Cayce consistently taught that areas where you've experienced difficulty or suffering often indicate where you're meant to help others heal and grow. The ARE archives contain numerous examples of people who discovered profound life purpose by transforming their personal struggles into service opportunities for others facing similar challenges. Now here's something that will transform your understanding of spiritual development. Cayce's readings consistently taught that individual soul growth directly influences the consciousness of humanity as a whole. Every person who develops spiritually creates positive effects that extend far beyond their personal experience. This brings us to the seventh and final step. Prepare consciously for your transition beyond physical death. In his readings about death and dying, Cayce consistently taught that physical death represents graduation to expanded consciousness rather than ending of existence. He emphasized that souls who prepare spiritually for this transition experience it as awakening to greater reality. Cayce's documented teachings about the afterlife consistently describe death as a natural process of consciousness expansion, where the soul reviews its earthly experiences and determines its next phase of spiritual development. Here's what Cayce taught about the dying process that transformed how people approached death. At physical death, consciousness expands to encompass all experiences from the current lifetime, creating understanding of how each experience contributed to soul growth. But here's the incredible part. Cayce taught that you can begin this life review process while still alive. His readings provided specific techniques for examining your experiences from a spiritual perspective, allowing you to understand the soul lessons in each situation. Think of this as spiritual preparation for graduation. Instead of leaving Earth with unfinished spiritual business, you can complete your soul's curriculum and transition with the satisfaction of lessons learned and service rendered. Cayce's own approach to death demonstrated these principles. According to documented accounts, he faced his final illness with peace and even anticipation, viewing it as transition to expanded consciousness rather than ending. Now here's what this means for you right now, today. Every single moment presents an opportunity to apply these 7 steps and accelerate your soul's development. Spiritual awakening doesn't require waiting for special circumstances. It begins with your next conscious choice. Start with step 1, truly accepting that you are an eternal soul having a temporary human experience. Let this understanding transform how you respond to daily challenges and setbacks. When you realize that current difficulties serve your soul's education, everything becomes opportunity for growth rather than reason for suffering. Move to step 2 by taking complete responsibility for your spiritual development. According to Cayce's consistent teachings, your soul's evolution depends entirely on your own choices and commitment to consciousness expansion. Implement step 3 by establishing daily connection to divine consciousness through meditation or prayer. Cayce's documented guidance suggests that even brief periods of sincere spiritual practice can open remarkable channels of wisdom and healing. Apply step 4 by treating your physical body as the sacred temple Cayce taught it to be. Purify your diet, eliminate toxins, and observe how physical cleansing enhances your spiritual sensitivity and awareness. Practice step 5 by actively cultivating love and forgiveness, especially toward those who have caused you pain. Remember, according to Cayce's teachings, forgiveness represents spiritual medicine for your own soul's healing. Discover step 6 by identifying and developing your unique gifts in service to others. Cayce consistently taught that your greatest fulfillment comes from contributing your special abilities to humanity's spiritual development. Finally, embrace step 7 by preparing consciously for your eventual transition beyond physical death. This preparation removes fear and allows you to live with greater freedom, purpose, and spiritual awareness. But wait, there's something else Cayce consistently taught that will revolutionize how you understand your spiritual journey. Throughout his readings, he emphasized that certain souls incarnate during specific historical periods to assist humanity's spiritual evolution. According to documented readings, advanced souls often feel drawn to spiritual knowledge from early ages and experience what Cayce called spiritual homesickness, a sense of not quite belonging in purely material existence. If you're attracted to this information about soul development, Cayce's teachings suggest this attraction itself indicates advanced spiritual development. Souls ready for higher consciousness naturally seek wisdom about their true nature and purpose. The documented readings consistently show that spiritually advanced individuals often struggle more in physical incarnation because they subconsciously remember the freedom and peace of higher dimensions. This creates restlessness that actually serves spiritual development by preventing over-attachment to material existence. According to Cayce's teachings, this spiritual restlessness represents a gift that keeps advanced souls focused on their true mission of consciousness development and service to humanity's spiritual awakening. Throughout his later readings, Cayce described periods when humanity faces choices between spiritual evolution and continued materialism. He taught that advanced souls incarnate specifically during these transition times to help guide collective consciousness toward higher understanding. The challenges and changes happening globally right now align with Cayce's descriptions of transition periods when old systems give way to new spiritual understanding. According to his documented teachings, souls with developed consciousness become natural leaders during such times through the power of their elevated awareness. Here's what this means for your daily experience. Every challenge you encounter, every difficult person you meet, every moment of uncertainty represents opportunity to demonstrate higher consciousness and help anchor new spiritual energy on earth. Instead of becoming frustrated with people who seem resistant to spiritual truth, remember that everyone plays their role in humanity's spiritual development. Your responsibility focuses on maintaining your own spiritual center and continuing your conscious development. Cayce consistently taught that advanced souls often feel isolated because they perceive reality differently than most people. But this apparent isolation actually serves spiritual preparation, teaching you to find strength and guidance from within rather than depending on external validation. The documented cases show that souls who successfully navigate this preparation develop what Cayce called attunement to the Christ consciousness, not religious doctrine, but actual embodiment of divine love, wisdom, and healing power. This represents your ultimate spiritual destination and true purpose. Every step of consciousness development leads toward complete integration of human and divine awareness. When you achieve this attunement, you become what Cayce described as a channel for the creative forces, a conscious instrument for healing, wisdom, and transformation. Your soul chose this incarnation not for comfort or ease, but for the extraordinary opportunity to participate in humanity's spiritual awakening. The 7 steps we've covered provide your roadmap for fulfilling this sacred purpose. The time for spiritual development isn't someday in the future. It's right now, in this moment, with your next breath and your next conscious choice. Edgar Cayce's documented work demonstrates that every soul possesses unlimited potential for consciousness expansion and service to humanity. Your spiritual evolution serves not just personal growth, but planetary healing. Your consciousness development affects not just individual experience, but collective awakening. Your soul's growth extends not just through this lifetime, but throughout eternity. Edgar Cayce's 14,000 documented readings prove that these principles work. Thousands of people applied his spiritual teachings and experienced profound transformations in health, relationships, purpose, and spiritual awareness. But here's the most important revelation. You have access to the same cosmic consciousness that Cayce demonstrated throughout his documented work. The universal intelligence he accessed during readings remains available to every soul willing to purify their consciousness and attune to divine wisdom. Your soul chose to be here at this exact moment in history for a specific spiritual purpose. The awakening happening on our planet right now requires conscious souls who understand these principles and apply them consistently in their daily lives. Don't let this information merely entertain you. Let it transform your entire approach to living. Begin applying these 7 steps today and observe how your experience of life shifts toward greater meaning, purpose, and spiritual joy. If this video has opened your awareness to your soul's incredible potential, smash that like button and subscribe for more transformational spiritual wisdom. Share this with someone who needs to understand their true spiritual nature. Your soul family is waiting to discover these life-changing teachings. The cosmic classroom operates continuously, and your next lesson awaits your attention. The question remains, are you ready to advance to higher levels of consciousness? Remember what Edgar Cayce proved through over 14,000 documented readings. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and your soul's conscious development represents the most important work you'll ever undertake. Your transformation begins with your next conscious choice. Edgar Cayce examined a 6-year-old girl named Amy Dietrich, who had been declared a hopeless case of epilepsy by 5 different doctors. The child had been nearly catatonic, with up to 20 seizures a day since age 2. On December 12, 1902, Cayce entered his famous trance state and revealed that the girl had slipped while getting out of a carriage, striking her spine, and the infection from influenza had settled there, causing the seizures. He prescribed osteopathic manipulations by Dr. A.C. Lane. Within a week, Amy called her parents by name and asked for her doll. Within 3 months, she was completely healthy and entered school the following year. But here's what's even more shocking about this documented case. It launched Edgar Cayce to national fame and proved something that medical science is only beginning to understand today. This wasn't luck or coincidence. In 1910, the New York Times published a widely reprinted article titled "Illiterate Man Becomes a Doctor When Hypnotized," after homeopath Dr. Wesley Ketchum presented Cayce's abilities to a medical conference of 700 doctors. And if you stay with me for the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal how Edgar Cayce's perspective on healing during life's darkest moments has been documented, verified, and is transforming lives nearly a century later. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what I'm about to share has been preserved in the Edgar Cayce Foundation archives in Virginia Beach, studied by medical professionals, and represents one of the most comprehensive collections of healing information ever documented from a single source. Edgar Cayce gave more than 14,306 documented readings that were meticulously transcribed by his secretary Gladys Davis Turner and are now preserved in the ARE Foundation archives. Nearly 9,000 of these readings dealt specifically with health and healing, making him one of America's most documented medical intuitives. But wait, before I tell you about the revolutionary healing perspective that emerged from these thousands of cases, you need to understand something that challenges everything conventional medicine believes about illness and recovery. In his readings on epilepsy alone, Cayce successfully provided guidance that helped cure 8 people of this condition during an era when there were no effective medications available. This was considered a remarkable feat, especially considering that even today, medication can only control seizures in about 70% of cases. Cayce's approach was revolutionary because he looked at the whole body, not just the brain. While medical science focused solely on neurological causes, Cayce identified that most cases of epilepsy were caused by adhesions in the lacteal ducts of the abdomen, part of the lymphatic system that absorbs nutrients. This changes everything about how we understand the connection between physical symptoms and their true causes. The Amy Dietrich case revealed something extraordinary about Cayce's healing perspective. He didn't just treat symptoms, he identified the root cause through what appeared to be supernatural diagnostic ability. His reading stated, "The trouble is in the spine. A few days before her illness, the body slipped while getting out of a carriage and struck the base of the spine on the carriage step. This injury caused a weakness where the grip germs could settle." According to sworn affidavit by Mr. Dietrich in 1910, the treatments worked exactly as Cayce predicted. Her mind began to clear up about the 8th day, and within 3 months she was in perfect health. But here's what's truly revolutionary about Cayce's healing perspective that I'll share in just a moment. Working from no more than a sick person's name and address, Edgar Cayce would enter a trance, make a diagnosis, and recommend effective treatments. Truly, one of the most phenomenal psychic achievements of all time. His ability to diagnose while in trance the physical disorders of a person he had never met, who might be hundreds of miles away, and then suggest effective treatment, remains one of the most astonishing psychic feats of all time. This wasn't just about individual healing cases. Cayce was developing a comprehensive understanding of how consciousness, body, mind, and spirit work together in ways that conventional medicine was only beginning to glimpse. Cayce's holistic approach addressed the body, mind, and spirit connection. The information offered in his readings was aimed at treating the whole person and helping people develop self-awareness and responsibility for improving their own physical health and spiritual well-being. During the most documented phases of his work in the 1920s through 1940s, Cayce revealed patterns that appeared again and again in his healing readings. People who followed his guidance often reported not just physical healing, but the development of greater spiritual awareness and intuitive abilities. Are you starting to see the pattern here? Cayce's readings focused on addressing the root cause of an ailment rather than simply alleviating the symptoms. But more than that, he showed that healing often occurred when people understood the deeper meaning and purpose behind their challenges. Linda Caputi, a retired RN who works at the RE library, used Cayce's treatments to help cure her daughter of epilepsy. She recently wrote a book about the experience and says that her daughter hasn't had a seizure in years. But here's what's truly extraordinary about Cayce's healing perspective, and this will change how you view every challenge in your life. Cayce built the first psychic hospital in America in Virginia Beach in 1928, complete with lecture hall, library, vault for storage of readings, and research facilities. The goal was to check and recheck remedies and produce a compendium for use by the medical profession. This wasn't just about supernatural healing. It was about creating a bridge between spiritual insight and practical medical application. For epilepsy cases, Cayce consistently recommended castor oil packs placed over the right side of the abdomen to break up adhesions in the lacteal ducts. The treatment involved hot castor oil packs for about an hour, 3 sessions per week, followed by abdominal massage. Dr. James H. Carraway, a professor at Eastern Virginia Medical School and surgery practitioner in Virginia Beach, states that Edgar Cayce's regimens improve the health and lives of people. He often sees patients who follow Cayce's teachings and notes that most are self-help-oriented people who pursue better diet, exercise, and stress relief. The revolutionary insight that emerged from thousands of Cayce's readings was this: healing isn't something that happens to you. It's something that happens through you when you align your consciousness with your body's natural healing intelligence. Cayce taught that the spirit is life, the mind is the builder, the physical is the result. This fundamental principle appeared throughout his readings and emphasized that consciousness creates physical reality. Let me share another documented case that proves this principle in the most extraordinary way. The book Edgar Cayce on Healing documents 12 cases scrutinized by professional writer Mary Ellen Carter and modern Dr. William A. McGarry. These cases include conditions like scleroderma, streptococcus, incoordination, peritonitis, gangrene, ear infections, Perthes disease, appendicitis, infertility, debilitation, cerebral palsy, and paralysis. In case after case, the pattern was the same. Cayce would identify not just the physical cause, but the mental, emotional, and spiritual factors contributing to the condition. The healing occurred when people addressed all levels, body, mind, and spirit, not just the physical symptoms. But wait, there's something even more profound that Cayce discovered about healing during life's darkest moments. Author and futurist Stephen A. Schwartz believes Cayce should get more credit for being ahead of his time, calling him the father of CAM, complementary and alternative medicine, and noting that the principles of health that he espoused have withstood the test of time. Cayce was among the first to suggest that alternative treatments, such as castor oil packs, dietary changes, exercise, and massage, can contribute to better overall health. He was one of the first people in America to recommend eating more fruits and vegetables and avoiding fried foods. This was revolutionary thinking in the early 1900s, but today the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine reports that 38% of Americans seek answers to health concerns using alternative modalities. The Edgar Cayce readings are available through circulating files, collections of verbatim readings carefully selected and arranged by topic. Research bulletins were created as reference tools for medical professionals and often include statistical analysis for causes and treatments of medical conditions. Here's what's truly revolutionary about Cayce's healing perspective on life's darkest moments, and this is what will change everything for you. Cayce taught that every challenge contains the seeds of spiritual growth and expanded consciousness. What we perceive as illness, crisis, or life's darkest moments are actually opportunities for the soul to develop greater awareness and healing abilities. Today, individuals from all walks of life and belief systems receive physical relief from illnesses through information given in the readings, even though some readings are 100 years old. Every day, someone comes into the ARE library looking for an answer. Visitors find information pertaining to their health problems and leave with a smile or at least hope. The most important part of Cayce's healing perspective, and this is what will transform your understanding of any challenge you're facing right now. Cayce provided medical, psychological, and spiritual advice to thousands of people who swore by the effectiveness of his trance-based readings. His work continues to transform lives through the comprehensive body, mind, spirit approach. The Edgar Cayce Foundation's mission is to preserve, protect, and make accessible these records for further research. All of Cayce's psychic readings, correspondence, photographs, recordings, and historical documents are maintained in Virginia Beach for continued study. Your darkest moment isn't evidence that life is cruel or meaningless. According to the documented patterns in thousands of Cayce readings, these moments are invitations to discover healing abilities and spiritual resources you never knew you possessed. Cayce's holistic approach helps people develop self-awareness and responsibility for improving their own physical health and spiritual well-being. The healing begins when you recognize that your consciousness has the power to influence your physical reality. The question isn't whether you'll survive your current challenge. The question is what level of healing, awareness, and spiritual development you'll achieve through it. The Edgar Cayce wisdom has been transforming lives for nearly 100 years. The readings explore personal spirituality, holistic health, dreams, finding life's purpose, reincarnation, intuition, meditation, mindful living, and ancient mysteries. As Edgar Cayce taught, the spirit is life. The mind is the builder. The physical is the result. When you align your consciousness with this principle, healing becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. Your healing has already begun in ways you may not yet recognize. Your transformation is supported by nearly a century of documented evidence that consciousness and healing are intimately connected. If this perspective resonates with you, if you're ready to explore the documented healing principles that have helped thousands for nearly 100 years, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to understand that their darkest moment contains the seeds of their greatest healing breakthrough. Edgar Cayce's 40,306 documented readings are still available today through the Eyrie in Virginia Beach. His work continues to help people discover that consciousness, properly understood and applied, is the ultimate healing force. Whether you're dealing with physical illness, emotional trauma, or spiritual crisis, the principles Cayce discovered show that your mind has the power to rebuild your reality from the inside out. Your healing journey is supported by the most comprehensively documented psychic healing work in American history. The only question is, are you ready to discover the healing power that's been waiting within your own consciousness all along? But Edgar Cayce's remarkable abilities extended far beyond individual healing. His prophetic gifts demonstrated an accuracy that continues to astonish researchers decades after his death. In February 1925, during a life reading for a 26-year-old physician, Cayce stated that the young doctor would soon find himself in possession of a great deal of money, but warned him about adverse forces that will come then in 1929. 4 years before it happened, Cayce predicted the exact year of the stock market crash. 6 months before the October 1929 crash, Cayce gave another warning to a New York stockbroker about the impending great disturbance in financial circles. He stated, "We may expect a considerable break and bear market, this issue being between those of the reserves of nations and of individuals, and will cause a great disturbance in financial circles. Some who made money with Cayce lost it when they stopped following his guidance." 6 months before the 1929 crash, Cayce warned Wall Street friends to sell every share of stock they owned. But they had been doing so well on a rising market, they attributed success to their own judgment and wouldn't listen. They went broke. Cayce was uncannily accurate, predicting the 1929 stock market crash almost to the month. Just as he forecast the Depression, in 1931 Cayce saw the precise upturn. In the spring of '33 will be the real, definite improvements. Franklin Roosevelt was inaugurated on March 4, 1933, and sent confidence surging through the nation with the cry that all we have to fear is fear itself. Are you starting to understand the scope of consciousness we're dealing with here? But the prophecy that may be most remarkable was given more than 11 years before it was validated by archaeological discovery. Edgar Cayce described a Jewish sect called the Essenes in extraordinary detail many years before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. The scrolls were found 2 years after Cayce's death, yet he had mentioned the Essenes in 171 different readings. At the time of Cayce's readings, scholars believed the Essenes were a monastic society composed exclusively of men. However, Cayce stated that in the Essene society, men and women worked and lived together toward a common goal of preparing for the birth of Christ. In 1951, 6 years after Cayce's death, archaeologists made further excavations at Qumran, near the site where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. They discovered evidence that both men and women lived together in the Essene society, exactly as Cayce had described decades earlier. When asked to explain the term Essene, Cayce's reading answered simply, expectancy. The reading suggested that it was this group who took upon themselves the task of preparing for the entrance of the Messiah into the earth. This wasn't just historical information, it was a demonstration that consciousness can access information across time and space in ways that conventional understanding cannot explain. In April 1929, Cayce predicted the convergence of large communications companies. He described how varied channels of communications would work in a more cooperative and structured manner, mentioning telegraph, telephone, radio, Western Union, and Westinghouse. These mergers did indeed occur exactly as predicted. During a 1927 reading, Cayce foresaw future medical advancements that seemed like science fiction at the time. He predicted diagnosis from a drop of blood would become possible. There is no condition existent in a body that the reflection of same may not be traced in the blood supply. This was decades before modern blood diagnostic techniques were developed. On May 28, 1926, Cayce made a connection between temperature changes in deep ocean currents and weather changes. His comments may be his version of what is known today as La Niña and El Niño, weather patterns resulting from temperature changes in deep ocean currents that dramatically affect global weather. Here's what makes these prophecies even more extraordinary for understanding healing consciousness. Cayce demonstrated that the same consciousness that could diagnose illness in people hundreds of miles away could also perceive future events and historical details with stunning accuracy. This suggests that healing consciousness operates beyond the normal limitations of time and space. The implications for your own healing journey are profound. If consciousness can access information across time and space, then the healing intelligence within you has access to solutions and possibilities that your normal mind cannot perceive. In 1935, Cayce predicted how World War II would unfold, describing an unprecedented alliance between the Germans, Austrians, and Japanese. This alliance wouldn't become reality until the Tripartite Pact signing on September 27, 1940. He also predicted that the whole world will be set on fire by the militaristic groups. But perhaps most significant for our understanding of consciousness and healing is what Cayce revealed about human potential. Cayce predicted that humans should live much longer than ordinarily given. Many of the organs and conditions show changes that come about by natural conditions as the body succumbs to the effects of age. Much of this may be overcome. Man should live much longer than has been ordinarily given, and will. He also predicted the development of what he termed the fifth root race, an evolutionary occurrence that would mark a new age and new understanding of humanity's relationship to the divine. When asked about this expanding consciousness in 1942, Cayce said, "You expect a new root race. What are you doing to prepare for it? You must prepare food for their bodies as well as their minds and their spiritual development." This suggests that we're moving toward an era where the healing consciousness demonstrated by Cayce will become more widely accessible to humanity. During his stock market readings in the mid-1920s, Cayce gave over 700 readings on business and the market, chronicling its rise and fall and teaching clients how to navigate financial cycles. Yet Cayce himself never profited materially from his abilities. Perhaps the answer lay in his own readings, which stressed repeatedly that psychic abilities were not to be used for material gain. Those who tried to exploit Cayce's gift for purely selfish purposes often lost what they had gained. A stockbroker lost his fortune when he persisted in playing the market, contrary to Cayce's advice. Others who misused the guidance found themselves facing serious consequences. This reveals something crucial about healing consciousness. It operates best when motivated by service rather than selfish gain. Edgar Cayce's documented accuracy and prophecy validates the same consciousness that provided healing guidance for thousands of people. When the same source that accurately predicted the stock market crash, World War II, and the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls also provides healing information, we must take seriously the transformational possibilities it offers. Your current challenge, whatever it is being addressed by the same universal consciousness that Cayce accessed. The healing intelligence that knew about the Essenes before scholars discovered them, that foresaw economic cycles and global conflicts, is available to guide your recovery and transformation. The documented evidence spanning nearly a century proves that consciousness has unlimited access to healing solutions. Your darkest moment is not just an individual struggle. It's an opportunity to connect with the same infinite intelligence that guided Edgar Cayce to help thousands of people discover healing and transformation. The principles Cayce demonstrated show that when we align our personal consciousness with universal consciousness, through service, meditation, and spiritual development, we gain access to healing resources that transcend normal human limitations. This is why Edgar Cayce's perspective on life's darkest moments remains revolutionary nearly 80 years after his death. He proved that consciousness creates reality, that healing intelligence is always available, and that our greatest challenges often become doorways to our most profound breakthroughs. Edgar Cayce discovered that consciousness remains fully active for exactly 15 minutes after the heart stops beating, and during this time, the soul experiences 3 distinct stages that determine its entire transition to the afterlife. In his documented readings from the 1930s, Cayce consistently described how the departing soul maintains complete awareness while witnessing its own physical death. But here's what's even more shocking about these findings. The soul actually has choices to make during these critical minutes that will shape its entire next phase of existence. This revelation comes from Cayce's extensive work with over 14,000 psychic readings conducted throughout his lifetime in Virginia Beach. Known as the sleeping prophet, Cayce would enter a trance state and access what he called the Akashic records, describing it as a cosmic library containing the complete record of every soul's journey through multiple lifetimes. If you're ready to discover what really happens during those crucial first 15 minutes after death, and why this knowledge could transform your entire perspective on dying, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to learn comes directly from the most documented psychic readings in American history. But wait, before we explore these 3 stages, you need to understand something that appears consistently throughout Cayce's death-related readings. According to the documented cases in the ARE archives, the soul doesn't experience pain or fear during these 15 minutes. Instead, Cayce described a state of heightened awareness, where the departing consciousness can observe everything happening around its physical body with crystal clarity. Here's what Cayce revealed about the first stage, which he called the recognition phase. During the initial 3 to 5 minutes after physical death, the soul realizes it has separated from the body but remains connected by what Cayce described as a silver cord of energy. In readings from the 1940s, he explained that this is when the soul first understands that physical death has occurred, but the emotional and mental bodies remain completely intact. This changes everything about how we should think about the moment of death, because according to Cayce's documented work, the soul isn't lost or confused. It's actually experiencing the most profound awakening of consciousness it has ever known. In verified cases from Cayce's readings, he described how souls in this first stage often try to communicate with loved ones who are present. The soul can see and hear everything happening in the room, understanding conversations and feeling the emotions of those around the physical body. But here's the remarkable part that appears in multiple archived readings. The soul often feels a sense of freedom and relief, rather than sadness or fear. But wait, there's something even more incredible about this first stage. According to Cayce's documented work, the soul begins to review its most recent lifetime not as a judgment, but as an educational experience. This isn't the full life review that happens later, but rather a preliminary understanding of the lessons learned and the growth achieved in the life just completed. Now here's where it gets really fascinating. The second stage, which Cayce called the transition phase, typically occurs between minutes 5 and 10 after physical death. During this period, the soul begins to perceive dimensions of reality that were invisible during physical life. In readings from the ARE archives, Cayce described how souls report seeing deceased relatives, spiritual guides, and beings of light approaching to assist in the transition. This is when the soul faces its first major choice point. According to Cayce's documented readings, some souls immediately recognize these helping spirits and move forward with them, while others choose to remain near the physical realm for various reasons. The choice made during these crucial minutes determines how smooth or challenging the overall transition will be. Here's what Cayce discovered that shocked his associates in Virginia Beach. Souls who have prepared themselves through spiritual study and service during life recognize this moment immediately and embrace the transition with joy. But those who lived purely material lives or harbor strong earthly attachments often resist moving forward, creating what Cayce described as a state of spiritual confusion. In one of his most documented cases from the late 1930s, Cayce described a soul who chose to remain earthbound for several days because of unfinished business. This reading revealed that the 15-minute window is critical because it's when the soul has the clearest perception and the strongest ability to make conscious choices about its next phase of existence. But here's something that will give you chills. According to verified readings in the ARE archives, souls who resist the transition during these 15 minutes often become what Cayce called earthbound spirits. They remain trapped between dimensions, unable to move forward to higher realms of consciousness, but also unable to return to physical life. Now let's explore the third and most crucial stage that Cayce revealed. Between minutes 10 and 15, the soul enters what he called the orientation phase. This is when the silver cord finally dissolves completely, and the soul must make its definitive choice about where to focus its consciousness next. According to Cayce's documented work, souls at this stage are greeted by what he described as teachers or guides who help them understand their options. Some souls choose to move immediately to higher dimensions for continued learning and growth. Others decide to prepare for another incarnation on Earth. But here's the key insight from Cayce's readings. This choice is made based on the soul's level of spiritual development and its understanding of universal laws. In readings from the 1940s archived at the ARE headquarters, Cayce explained that souls who have developed strong spiritual awareness during physical life naturally gravitate toward higher dimensions of service and learning. These souls recognize that death is simply a graduation to a more expanded state of consciousness. But wait, there's something even more profound that Cayce discovered about this final stage. According to his documented readings, the soul's consciousness doesn't diminish after death. It actually expands dramatically. Souls report being able to perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously, understand universal principles with perfect clarity, and feel connected to all life throughout the cosmos. Here's what this means for you right now. According to Cayce's extensive work, how you prepare for death during your current lifetime directly influences your experience during these crucial 15 minutes. Souls who have practiced meditation, studied spiritual principles, and focused on service to others navigate this transition with ease and joy. But here's the part that changed everything for people who studied Cayce's work in Virginia Beach. The sleeping prophet revealed that death isn't something to fear. It's actually the most natural and beautiful transition a soul can experience. In verified readings from the ARE archives, he described death as like taking off a worn-out coat and putting on beautiful new garments of light. According to documented cases from Cayce's work, souls who understand these principles report that the 15 minutes after death are filled with more love, peace, and understanding than they ever experienced during physical life. The presence of spiritual guides and deceased loved ones creates an atmosphere of welcome and celebration, rather than loss and separation. Now, here's something that will absolutely astound you. In readings from the 1930s, Cayce revealed that souls maintain their individual personality and memories after death, but they gain access to universal knowledge that was blocked during physical incarnation. This means that in those 15 minutes, you become more yourself than you've ever been, not less. But wait, there's one more crucial element that Cayce discovered about these first 15 minutes. According to his documented work, the quality of a person's thoughts and emotions at the moment of death significantly influences their transition experience. Souls who die with love, gratitude, and spiritual awareness in their hearts move through all three stages smoothly and joyfully. This is why Cayce consistently emphasized the importance of spiritual preparation during physical life. In verified readings from the ARE archives, he explained that regular meditation, prayer, and service to others create what he called spiritual momentum that carries the soul gracefully through the death transition. Here's the bottom line that every person needs to understand. According to Edgar Cayce's extensive documented work, those first 15 minutes after death are not a time of judgment or punishment, but rather a period of incredible opportunity for spiritual growth and conscious choice-making. The soul that has prepared itself through spiritual development experiences death as the ultimate liberation. In one of his most profound readings archived at Virginia Beach, Cayce described death as returning home after a long journey. The soul recognizes its true nature as an eternal being of light and love, temporarily having a physical experience. The 15 minutes after death are simply the bridge between one state of consciousness and another. According to Cayce's documented findings, understanding these principles can transform your entire relationship with death. Instead of fearing the unknown, you can approach the end of physical life with confidence, knowing that consciousness continues and that you'll maintain your individual identity while gaining access to infinite wisdom and love. But here's what makes this information even more powerful. Cayce's reading suggests that souls who die with this understanding often return to help other souls navigate their own transitions. Death becomes not an ending, but a graduation to expanded service and consciousness. The Sleeping Prophet's work reveals that these 15 minutes are filled with more beauty, love, and understanding than most people experience in an entire physical lifetime. It's a time of reunion with loved ones, recognition of life's deeper purposes, and conscious choice about the soul's next phase of eternal development. But wait, there's something absolutely mind-blowing that Cayce discovered about how these 15 minutes connect to your current life right now. In documented readings from his work in Virginia Beach, the Sleeping Prophet revealed that souls who are approaching death often begin receiving what he called preparatory visions, weeks or even months before their physical transition. According to verified cases in the ARE archives, dying individuals frequently report visits from deceased relatives, prophetic dreams, and sudden spiritual insights that help prepare their consciousness for the upcoming transition. Cayce explained that these experiences aren't hallucinations, they're actually the soul beginning to tune into the frequencies it will fully access during those crucial 15 minutes after death. Here's what this means for everyone watching this video. If you've ever had dreams about deceased loved ones, sudden spiritual awakenings, or unexplained moments of profound peace, according to Cayce's work, your soul might be naturally preparing you for your own eventual transition. These experiences serve as practice runs for consciousness expansion. But here's the part that will absolutely blow your mind. In readings from the 1940s, Cayce revealed that advanced souls sometimes choose to experience what he called conscious dying. These individuals maintain full awareness throughout the entire death process, making deliberate choices at each stage instead of moving through the transition unconsciously. According to documented cases, people who achieved this level of conscious dying reported that the 15 minutes after physical death felt like hours of the most profound spiritual education they had ever received. They described learning universal laws, understanding their life's true purpose, and receiving detailed guidance about their next phase of existence. Now here's something that connects directly to modern near-death experience research. Long before scientists began studying NDEs, Cayce was documenting cases of people who returned from clinical death with detailed memories of those first 15 minutes. In verified readings from the 1930s, he explained that some souls are given the choice to return to physical life during this critical window. But wait, there's an even more incredible aspect to this phenomenon. According to Cayce's documented work, souls who return from those 15 minutes often come back with enhanced psychic abilities, deeper spiritual understanding, and a completely transformed perspective on life's priorities. They've glimpsed their true eternal nature and carry that wisdom back into physical existence. Here's what Cayce revealed about the connection between your current spiritual practices and your future death experience. In readings archived at the ARE headquarters, he consistently emphasized that daily meditation creates what he called spiritual muscle memory. When the moment of death arrives, souls who have practiced regularly moving their consciousness beyond the physical body navigate the transition with remarkable ease. According to his documented findings, people who pray regularly, study spiritual principles, and serve others selflessly actually begin experiencing mini versions of the death transition during deep meditation or prayer. They're unknowingly training their consciousness for the ultimate expansion that occurs in those 15 minutes after death. But here's the most shocking revelation from Cayce's work about these 15 minutes. In one of his most profound readings from the late 1930s, he described how some advanced souls use this transition period not just for their own spiritual development, but as an opportunity to help other souls who might be struggling with their own crossing over. This creates what Cayce called spiritual rescue work, where newly deceased souls who navigate their 15 minutes successfully immediately turn their attention to assisting others who might be confused or frightened by the transition process. According to archived readings, this service work begins within minutes of a soul's own successful crossing. Now here's something that will change how you think about grief and loss forever. According to Cayce's extensive documented work, deceased loved ones remain accessible to living family members for much longer than those initial 15 minutes. In verified readings from throughout his career, he explained that souls who successfully transition maintain the ability to communicate with and guide their loved ones still in physical form. But the quality and clarity of this ongoing connection depends heavily on how well the soul navigated those crucial first 15 minutes after death. Souls who move through the 3 stages, consciously and successfully, become powerful spiritual guides for their surviving family members, able to offer protection, guidance, and comfort from the other side. Here's the practical application that every viewer needs to understand. Based on Cayce's documented readings, you can begin preparing for your own 15-minute transition right now through specific spiritual practices. Regular meditation, daily prayer, acts of selfless service, and study of universal spiritual principles all contribute to what he called soul development. According to his work archived in Virginia Beach, souls who engage in these practices during physical life report that their death experience feels familiar rather than foreign. The expansion of consciousness that occurs in those 15 minutes becomes a natural progression rather than a shocking leap into the unknown. But wait, there's one final revelation from Cayce's work that ties everything together. In his most advanced readings about death and consciousness, the sleeping prophet revealed that those 15 minutes after death are actually a preview of humanity's collective spiritual evolution. As more souls learn to navigate this transition consciously, they contribute to raising the overall spiritual vibration of human consciousness. This means that by preparing yourself for conscious dying, you're not just ensuring your own smooth transition, you're actually contributing to the spiritual awakening of all humanity. According to Cayce's vision, documented in readings from the 1940s, there will come a time when conscious dying becomes the norm rather than the exception, transforming death from humanity's greatest fear into its most celebrated spiritual achievement. If this information has opened your mind to new possibilities about consciousness and death, make sure to subscribe for more insights from Edgar Cayce's remarkable documented work. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this life-changing information about what really happens when we cross over to the other side. The knowledge contained in Cayce's readings can transform not just how we think about death, but how we choose to live each day of our physical existence, knowing that every spiritual practice we engage in today is preparation for the most important 15 minutes of our eternal journey. Edgar Cayce revealed that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was chosen not just for her purity, but because she had been meticulously prepared for decades by a hidden spiritual order, the Essenes. In documented readings from the 1930s and 1940s, Cayce described how this ancient community, living near Mount Carmel, knew through their own prophetic visions that a soul of cosmic importance would soon incarnate. They didn't leave it to chance. From the age of 4, Mary's environment, education, and spiritual training were guided with precision so she could serve as the vessel for the most important mission in human history. And here's what will make you question everything you thought you knew. Cayce stated specific details about the Essenes and their preparation of Mary that were later confirmed when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, 2 years after his death. But what exactly did this preparation involve? And how did Cayce know about a community that mainstream historians barely acknowledged? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, we'll uncover the physical, mental, and spiritual conditioning Mary underwent based on Cayce's archived readings, and how these teachings reveal secrets about your own spiritual potential. Before we dive deeper, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because the knowledge we're about to explore is more than historical curiosity. It's a blueprint for awakening consciousness that could transform your life starting today. According to Cayce's readings, the Essenes were not an obscure religious fringe group, but the outgrowth of the periods of preparations from the teachings by Melchizedek, as propagated by Elijah and Elisha and Samuel. They were set aside for preserving themselves in direct line of choice for the offering of themselves as channels through which there might come the new or the divine origin. They lived according to strict laws of purity, communal living, and continuous prayer. Cayce revealed they had access to ancient records and prophecies about the coming of the Messiah and understood how to prepare the mother who would bring him into the world. In Cayce's documented readings, Mary's life was not ordinary from the very beginning. Both Mary and Joseph came to the Essenes by being dedicated by their parents. Even before her birth, her lineage was chosen for their spiritual discipline. Cayce explained that the Essenes believed the physical body is a sacred temple, and for Mary to carry a soul of such magnitude, her preparation had to be complete. He taught that physical health, mental clarity, and spiritual attunement create a vibrational field that can attract certain souls, what he called the law of spiritual attraction. When Mary was 4 years old, according to Cayce's readings, the Essenes brought her into their community for intensive preparation. Cayce indicated she lived in an environment where every detail was designed to elevate her consciousness. The diet was specific. No wine, no fermented drink ever given. Special foods, yes. These were kept balanced according to that which had been first set by Aaron and Ra-Ta. She was taught breathing exercises, prayers to align her will with divine will, and practices that kept her mind steady. Cayce described how women in the Essene community were considered as equals with the men in their activities, in their abilities to formulate, to live, to be channels. But here's what's even more striking. Cayce noted that this preparation wasn't about worshipping Mary herself, but about the sacred responsibility she would carry. Cayce revealed that Mary and Jesus were twin souls, and that, in the beginning, Mary was the twin soul of the Master, in the entrance into the earth. The Essenes understood that the soul who would be born through her was already a being of advanced consciousness. Mary's role was to provide the most harmonious entry point possible for that soul, and this is where Cayce's teachings become deeply relevant to all of us, because the same principles used to prepare Mary can be applied to prepare ourselves for higher levels of spiritual awareness. In his readings, Cayce explained that preparation for divine service is never accidental. Whether you are called to guide a movement, heal others, or awaken spiritual truth in your own life, the process always involves purification, attunement, and intention. The Essenes practiced this deliberately. They understood that a pure vessel doesn't mean a perfect human without flaws, but a human committed to aligning every thought, word, and action with a higher purpose. Cayce taught that each person radiates that vibration to which they attune themselves. And that's why the Essene example stands as a model for spiritual preparation. But wait, Cayce also revealed details that most people have never heard. In multiple readings, he stated that the Essenes used sound and vibration as healing and spiritual tools. He mentioned that sounds, music, and color may have much to do with creating the proper vibrations about individuals. Cayce described specific chanting techniques and vibrational practices used to balance spiritual centers and elevate consciousness. This is decades before modern science began exploring how sound frequencies can affect physical and mental states. And in just a moment, I'll share Cayce's most documented account of Mary's selection, the moment she was chosen on the temple steps through a manifestation that Cayce described in stunning detail. But first, ask yourself, if your life were being prepared for a mission known only to the divine, how differently would you treat your mind, body, and spirit starting today? Cayce's description of Mary's selection on the temple steps is one of the most detailed accounts in his entire body of work. He described how Mary, at the age of 12 to 13, participated in a ceremony on the temple steps at Mount Carmel. These were those that led to the altar. These were called the temple steps. These were those upon which the sun shone as it arose of a morning, when there were the first periods of the chosen maidens going to the altar for prayer, as well as for the burning of the incense. Cayce continued, "On this day, as they mounted the steps, all were bathed in the morning sun, which not only made a beautiful picture but clothed all as in purple and gold. As Mary reached the top step then there were the thunder and lightning, and the angel led the way, taking the child by the hand before the altar. This was the manner of choice. This was the showing of the way, for she led the others on this particular day." When asked if this was the Orthodox Jewish temple or the Essene temple, Cayce replied, "The Essenes, to be sure." Because of the adherence to those visions, as proclaimed by Zacharias in the Orthodox temple, he, Zacharias, was slain even with his hands upon the horns of the altar. Hence these, as were being here protected, were in Carmel. This wasn't just ceremony, it was confirmation. Cayce revealed that Mary underwent years of preparation, trained as to physical exercise first, trained as to mental exercises as related to chastity, purity, love, patience, endurance. All of these by what would be termed by many in the present as persecutions, but as tests for physical and mental strength, and this under the supervision of those that cared for the nourishments by the protection in the food values. But here's what makes this account even more remarkable. Cayce gave these detailed descriptions of the Essenes and their practices decades before the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947. When those ancient texts were found, they confirmed the existence of a disciplined religious community living near the Dead Sea, practicing communal living, special diets, and intensive spiritual preparation, exactly as Cayce had described. One of the most fascinating aspects of Cayce's readings is his revelation that the Essenes were working toward a cosmic plan. When asked about the process of selection, he explained, "They were first dedicated, and then there was the choice of the individual through the growths as to whether they would be merely channels for general services. For these were chosen for special services at various times, as were the 12 chosen at the time, which may be used as an illustration." The Essenes weren't just preparing Mary randomly, they were following ancient knowledge about spiritual cycles and preparation. Cayce suggested that consciousness shapes reality, and that the environment into which a soul enters can either enhance or hinder its mission. In Mary's case, there could be no interference, no accidental disruption to the divine plan. But Cayce didn't stop there. His readings reveal that after Mary's selection, she continued preparation for a period of some 3 to 4 years before her mission truly began. He stated, "For you see, there was from the time of the first promise, while she was still yet in training from the choice, there was a period of some 3 to 4 years. Yet when he went to claim her as the bride, at the period of, or between 16 and 17, she was found with child." This leads to one of Cayce's most surprising teachings about spiritual preparation. He insisted that the Mary principle applies to every soul, the idea that we are all in some sense vessels for divine influence, and that what we carry into the world, whether it's a vision, a mission, or healing, is shaped by how we prepare ourselves. Cayce taught that if one wanted to attune to better health and spiritual awareness, they must understand that vibration and preparation are key. 3 minutes from now, I'll reveal what Cayce said about why this preparation was documented, not only for that time, but because humanity would need this exact blueprint again. But before we go there, reflect on this. What could you accomplish if every aspect of your life were brought into perfect harmony with your soul's highest calling? In his readings, Cayce spoke of spiritual cycles that affect humanity, stating, "These will begin in those periods from 58 to 98, when these will be proclaimed as the periods when his light will be seen in the clouds." He explained that humanity moves through vast waves of consciousness, and that certain periods call for intensive spiritual preparation. The Essenes, through their ancient knowledge, were aware that they were living at the threshold of such a cycle. Mary's mission was the central event for that age, but Cayce warned that similar preparation would be required again in future generations. This wasn't abstract speculation. Cayce indicated that spiritual renewal follows patterns, and that the conditions of our time are similar to those faced by the Essenes: the need for spiritual truth, authentic preparation, and communities dedicated to higher consciousness. Cayce also described in his readings how the Essenes worked to maintain Mary's spiritual purity and focus. They surrounded her with constant prayer, maintained schedules of daily practice, and protected her from environments that could disrupt her inner peace. They saw her not as fragile, but as precious, like a vessel that needed careful tending until it was ready to fulfill its purpose. This was not fear-based isolation, but intentional cultivation of a life aligned with divine purpose. Here's where Cayce's account becomes even more relevant to us today. Cayce stated that life in its manifestations is vibration, and he stressed that the Mary principle applies to every soul. The Essenes treated preparation as sacred work, and Cayce challenged modern seekers to do the same. He confirmed that sounds, vibrations, and music will best bring healing and strength to the body, showing us that the same tools used for Mary's preparation are available to us. In his readings, Cayce recounted that throughout Mary's preparation years, the Essenes maintained specific practices designed to enhance spiritual receptivity. They understood that spiritual development requires consistent daily discipline, proper nutrition, community support, and environments charged with spiritual energy. Cayce emphasized that these weren't superstitions, but practical applications of spiritual law. But wait, there's an even deeper layer. Cayce's readings reveal that Mary's preparation included regular periods of silent communion and inner guidance. The Essenes called this listening to the voice, a practice intended to clear all distractions so the soul could hear divine instruction without interference. These weren't escapes from responsibility. They were essential training for the mission ahead. Cayce urged that modern spiritual seekers could benefit greatly from reclaiming such periods of intentional silence and inner listening. In just a moment, I'll share Cayce's statement about why the Essenes documented every step of Mary's preparation, and why he believed this knowledge was meant to resurface in our time. But first, think about this. Are you living in a way that would make you ready if your moment of destiny arrived tomorrow? According to Cayce's readings, the Essenes documented their preparation methods because they understood spiritual cycles and knew their work extended beyond their own time. Cayce explained that these ancient practices were preserved not only in physical records, but also in what he called the Akashic records, the cosmic library of all human experience. He believed that in periods of spiritual confusion and moral uncertainty, this knowledge would resurface to guide humanity. Cayce's readings reveal that the Essenes followed the regular ritual in the temple. For remember, the Jews were not refrained from following their rituals. Those of the other groups, as the Egyptians or the Parthians, were not refrained from following the customs to which they had been trained. This shows that their methods could be adapted to different cultures and times without losing effectiveness. What startled students of Cayce's work was his teaching that, in our current age, the responsibility for preparation would not fall on isolated spiritual communities alone. Instead, Cayce suggested that every sincere seeker is called to take personal responsibility for becoming a vessel of higher purpose. The Essene model serves as inspiration and guidance, not as a replacement for personal discipline. Cayce drew a parallel in his readings. Just as Mary's readiness allowed the entrance of the Christ consciousness into the world, so too will your readiness allow the entrance of divine influence into your life, your work, your generation. He made it clear that this was not poetic metaphor, but spiritual law. Prepared vessels draw in higher realities. Unprepared vessels allow lower forces to dominate. But there was one last revelation in his readings that seemed aimed directly at our generation. Cayce claimed that in moments of great planetary change, ancient wisdom resurfaces in human consciousness. He suggested that the increasing interest in holistic living, meditation, sound healing, and ancient wisdom in our time is no accident. It was anticipated by communities like the Essenes. Cayce's readings provide specific guidance that we can apply today. Conscious nutrition, special foods, no fermented drinks, daily spiritual practice, physical exercise, mental training in chastity, purity, love, patience, endurance, and community support from others on the spiritual path. These aren't outdated religious rules. They're practical tools for spiritual development that remain effective today. And here is the choice Cayce left us with in his readings. Live as if these truths are mere history, or live as if they are a call to action. He taught that each person radiates that vibration to which they attune themselves. If we choose to follow the Essene example, then every meal, every practice, every word becomes part of a preparation that could allow light to enter the world in ways we cannot yet imagine. The Essenes did their part for their time. Mary fulfilled her cosmic role through proper preparation. Now, according to Cayce's readings, the question is whether we will do ours. Cayce suggested that those who prepare themselves spiritually during times of global change become channels for the same divine forces that worked through Mary and Jesus. But here's the most mind-blowing part that will completely change how you view your own spiritual journey. Cayce revealed that the Essenes weren't just preparing Mary. They were preparing an entire generation of souls who would reincarnate in our time to help humanity through its next great spiritual awakening. In his readings, Cayce identified specific individuals in his own era who had been Essenes during Jesus' time, now returned with the same mission: to prepare the way for a new level of human consciousness. Think about this. If Cayce was right, some of you watching this video right now might be those very souls, return to complete what the Essenes started 2,000 years ago. The sudden pull you feel toward holistic living, meditation, sound healing, and ancient wisdom isn't random. It's your soul remembering its purpose. Cayce taught that these returned Essenes would recognize each other through their shared dedication to spiritual preparation and their intuitive understanding of the principles he revealed. And this brings us to perhaps the most practical and transformative aspect of Cayce's Essene teachings: the daily disciplines that can awaken your own spiritual potential, whether you're a returned Essene soul or simply someone called to higher service. Cayce didn't just describe what the Essenes did, he provided a complete blueprint that modern seekers can follow to achieve the same level of spiritual attunement that prepared Mary for her cosmic mission. First, the Essene diet that Cayce revealed goes far beyond no wine or fermented drinks. According to his readings, the Essenes understood that different foods carry different vibrational frequencies. They avoided all foods that created heaviness or cloudiness in consciousness. No processed foods, no foods grown in anger or violence, and specific combinations that either elevated or lowered spiritual receptivity. Cayce taught that our bodies are literally built from what we consume, and that spiritual development requires conscious nutrition. The Essenes ate primarily foods that grew above ground, preferring those touched by sunlight, and they blessed all food before consumption to align it with divine purpose. But the diet was just the beginning. Cayce revealed that the Essenes practiced what we would now call circadian rhythm optimization. They aligned their daily activities with natural cycles in ways that modern science is only beginning to understand. They rose before dawn for meditation and prayer when, according to Cayce, the veil between dimensions is thinnest. Their work, meals, and rest followed patterns that synchronized their energy with cosmic rhythms. This wasn't primitive living. It was advanced spiritual technology disguised as simple practices. Here's something that will shock you. Cayce described Essene healing techniques that sound remarkably similar to modern energy medicine and biofeedback. The Essenes used what Cayce called laying on of hands, combined with specific breathing patterns and visualization techniques to balance the spiritual centers of the body. They understood that illness begins in the spiritual body before manifesting physically, and they treated the energetic cause rather than just symptoms. Cayce revealed that they could actually see the aura or energy field around people and could detect imbalances before they became physical problems. The Essenes also practiced what Cayce termed group consciousness, a form of collective meditation where individual minds merged into a unified field of awareness. During these sessions, they could access information from what Cayce called the universal consciousness or Akashic records. This is how they knew about Jesus' coming mission decades before it unfolded. They would enter these group states to receive guidance about everything from healing techniques to agricultural practices to spiritual preparation methods. And here's where it gets really interesting for us today. Cayce taught that this same group consciousness is forming again in our time, but now it's happening globally through technology and spiritual awakening. Every time someone watches a video like this, practices meditation, or commits to conscious living, they're contributing to a collective field of awareness that's preparing humanity for its next evolutionary leap. The Essenes worked in a small community at Mount Carmel, but today's Essenes are connected across the entire planet. But wait, there's something Cayce revealed about the Essenes that most people completely miss, and it's the key to understanding why their preparation method was so powerful. The Essenes didn't just practice spiritual disciplines individually, they created what Cayce called group harmony, where every person's spiritual development enhanced everyone else's progress. They understood that consciousness is contagious, and that being around people committed to higher purposes automatically elevates your own spiritual frequency. This is why Cayce emphasized that finding your spiritual community, your modern Essene group, is crucial for anyone serious about spiritual development. Whether it's an online community, a meditation group, a holistic health circle, or even a few friends committed to conscious living, surrounding yourself with others on the spiritual path creates an amplification effect that accelerates everyone's growth. The Essenes never tried to do spiritual work in isolation. They knew that spiritual evolution is a collective endeavor. Cayce also revealed that the Essenes practiced what we might call environmental consciousness. They understood that your physical surroundings directly affect your spiritual state. They carefully chose the location of their community near Mount Carmel because of specific energy qualities of that place. They arranged their living spaces according to principles that enhanced meditation and spiritual receptivity. They even paid attention to the colors, sounds, and natural elements in their environment, understanding that everything in your surroundings either supports or hinders your spiritual development. For us today, this means being conscious about the energy of our homes, workplaces, and the places we spend time. It means choosing music, colors, and natural elements that support rather than drain our spiritual energy. It means recognizing that clutter, harsh lighting, and chaotic environments can actually block our connection to higher consciousness, while clean, harmonious, naturally lit spaces can dramatically enhance our spiritual practices. Here's the final piece that ties everything together. Cayce taught that the Essenes understood service as the ultimate spiritual practice. Everything they did, from their diet to their meditation to their community life, was directed toward one goal: preparing to serve the divine plan. They didn't pursue spiritual development for personal gain or even personal enlightenment. They developed themselves to become better servants of the greater good. This is why Mary's preparation was so effective. It wasn't about making her special or superior, but about making her completely available to divine will. And this is the secret that can transform your own spiritual journey. When you shift from seeking spiritual experiences for yourself to preparing yourself to serve something greater, everything accelerates. Your intuition sharpens, your energy increases, opportunities align, and you begin to experience the kind of spiritual support that the Essenes cultivated around Mary. So, if this message has resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with those who are seeking deeper purpose. Leave a comment with one change you will commit to making in your daily life to align more with your highest calling. And ask yourself, Are you ready to live like a modern Essene, preparing yourself not just for personal awakening, but to serve humanity's next great spiritual transformation? Together, by following the wisdom preserved through Cayce's documented readings and the example of the Essenes, we can become the prepared vessels our world needs right now.